Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So as you know, it's Tuesday, which means Type 2, or Standard Tuesday, here in Instant Deck Tech land, and we have a pretty sweet one today. You probably know by now, I love Panharmonicon, and we have an interesting new take on Panharmonicon, which kinda goes deep with a lot of one-ofs, Eldritch Evolution, and of course Panharmonicon itself. I'm calling it Evolutionary Panharmonicon, and this one recently took F. Cormier to a 5-0 finish in a competitive standard league, so congrats to F. Cormier on their finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break it all down, if you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So, Evolutionary Panharmonicon is built around both Panharmonicon and Eldritch Evolution. So Panharmonicon doubles up on Enter the Battlefield triggers. Eldritch Evolution allows you to sack a creature to get a bigger creature, a creature with converted mana cost X plus 2 or less than the creature you sack. So if you sack a 2-drop, you can get a 4-drop, a 3-drop, a 2-drop, a 1-drop, 0-drop if that's your thing, and so forth. So this is a way you can tutor for whatever creature you need with your Panharmonicon in a situation, and there's some neat combos that are in this deck that I haven't seen before with Panharmonicon. So we have some of the typical stuff that we've seen before. Glitness Crane helps you find Panharmonicon, also finds other artifacts, and it's a good blocker in the air in the early game. So you can find a single Filigree Familiar to gain some life, Prophetic Prism fixes mana, draws some cards, Verderus and Noxious Gearhulk, a couple of the big finishers. So we've kind of seen this stuff before. We actually played many of these things in our 4 or 5 color Panharmonicon decks that we've been messing around with. So this stuff is pretty straightforward. The numbers are slightly different, but we've seen this before. We also get a bunch of just good Enter the Battlefield triggers. Cloud Blazer with a Panharmonicon draws you 4, gains you 4 life. Reflector Mage bounces some stuff, really disrupts the opponent. The deck found a way to squeeze Thought-Knot Seer into this crazy 4-color mana base and actually produce colorless mana as well. And if you can actually cast Thought-Knot Seer, it's absurd with Panharmonicon. You get 2 cards from your opponent's hand, and even if they can get rid of it, they only get 1 card back. So Thought-Knot Seer is great when it triggers once, but it's insane when it triggers more than once. And then Linvala gains some life, maybe makes you some angels. The deck also has some things that don't necessarily work with Panharmonicon, but are just good value plays, and you can search them up with your Eldritch Evolution. So Eldrazi Displacer, another advantage to being able to play colorless mana, lets you blink any of those one-ups you've been talking about. So you can Eldritch Evolution, get a Cloud Blazer, use your Displacer, blink the Cloud Blazer, get even more triggers, just get super out of control. Spellquiller doesn't really work with Eldritch Evolution or with Panharmonicon, unless you're in this weird situation where your opponent somehow has 2 spells on the stack, which seems unlikely. But it's a good disruptive play, allows you to keep your opponent from maybe killing your Panharmonicon, breaking up your combos, and then Athalia doesn't really work with anything either. You can tutor up with Eldritch Evolution, but it just slows your opponent down a little bit. One of the most unique aspects of this deck that I haven't seen with Panharmonicon before is Restoration Gearsmith, and this card seems insane with Eldritch Evolution and Panharmonicon. So when it enters the battlefield, you get to return an artifact or creature from your graveyard to your hand. So you can sack something to your Eldritch Evolution, and then use Restoration Gearsmith to get that card back from the graveyard, get your Enter the Battlefield trigger again, and it helps make all these one-ofs more practical. If you need your Cloud Blazer and your opponent kills it, you can always Restoration Gearsmith it back, and of course, it triggers twice, so you generate a ton of value from the graveyard with Restoration Gearsmith. It also solves the problem of the opponent killing your Panharmonicon. You can just Restoration Gearsmith it back to your hand and keep going. And then you have Uvenwald Hydra, which helps thin lands out of your deck. You also can search out creature lands and so forth. Plus, it's just huge. It shuts down big flyers. You're going to double trigger the land search, and it's going to be like a 8/8 when it comes into play once you search out those lands. So it's just really big and reachy. As far as the mana base, a bunch of creature lands, and then a whole bunch of the fast lands, one of every color, and then we get Ether Hub, Evolving Wilds. Evolving Wilds can also get waste to activate your colorless stuff. Ether Hubs helps with that too. And then a basic land of each color. So this deck is super, super deep on the color spectrum. In the sideboard, we get some more interesting options. A single combustible Gearhulk. Okay, the unique one is Demon of Dark Schemes. When it enters the battlefield, it triggers, and all creatures get -2/-2. But if you have a Panharmonicon, it's going to be -2/-2 twice, so you're just going to like wrath away the board, get a ton of energy, start reanimating stuff. I really like the idea of Demon of Dark Schemes in Panharmonicon so much that I kind of want to build a mono black Panharmonicon deck now, but we'll see. And then a bunch of counters: negates, void shatters, ceremonious rejections, and a bunch of removal: fumigates to wrath the board, quarantine fields, and anguish unmaking, hit anything, stasis snare gets creatures, and that is a 5-color plus colorless, so essentially 6-color Evolutionary Panharmonicon. And that's been our instant deck tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.